Halloween, 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 happy, happy Halloween, Silver.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Mask of the Slasher. We are starting spooky season.
Oh, yeah.
Woo! Well, most people start it in September, but this is the beginning of October, the real spooky season.
Yep.
Halloween month. Ooh, shit. So, we decided to start off with one of Josh's all-time favorite horror movies.
Yeah.
And a fairly controversial one at that.
Indeed.
And if you couldn't tell, we're going to be talking about Halloween 3.
Yes!
Now, I will say that I never saw Halloween 3 until I met this dude. And there's a reason for it. And it has actually grown on me significantly since those early days. But a lot of people don't like it.
Right. And the reason for that is because, obviously, it's part of the Halloween series, but Michael Myers is nowhere to be found. Now, originally it was panned, obviously. Didn't do well at the box office, anything like that. It's since become a cult classic, in the interim here. And I would go so far as to say, had it not been part of the Halloween series, had it just been Season of the Witch, it would have become I'm not saying it would have set the world on fire when it came out, but it would have become a cult classic much sooner.
Yeah.
Because that's where the controversy lies. And of course, the story behind that is the original intention with Halloween was not to keep featuring Michael Myers. It was to create sort of an anthology with a different movie each year for Halloween with a different story. Well, obviously, we all see how that worked out. Everybody wanted Michael. They didn't get him. And so that whole idea was doomed.
Well, it's kind of funny that if they were going to start that, why didn't they start it with 2?
Right, exactly.
It probably would have panned out a little bit better, I think, if they had started with 2. But you go Michael.
Michael.
You go with Michael Myers for 2 of them, and then bro's gone.
Exactly.
And it just looked like they were just borrowing the name to get people to come.
Exactly.
So, and this movie had a budget of $2.5 million, surprisingly. And supposedly it made $4.6 million.
Oh.
Which I don't know how true those numbers are.
I'm surprised it made that much, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, I don't know. That doesn't seem right to me. But who am I? This was directed by Tommy Lee Wallace. We looked him up because never really knew anything about him. But he directed It, the TV series, the Stephen King book, It, the TV series that was out in 1990, the one that you can take a nap to.
Well, let's not get carried away.
So boring.
It's a little drawn out. I'll say that for sure.
You know what?
But Tim Curry is phenomenal.
Well, Tim Curry's amazing. But if we didn't have a remake, then that one would still be good.
Right, I see what you're saying.
But you watch it now, it did not age well.
No.
And it's so slow.
It is slow, yeah.
But that's how Stephen King movies are.
Well, so are his books, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Hot take.
Yeah, sorry. Something else that obviously John Carpenter didn't direct this.
Right, but he did produce.
He did produce it along with Debbie Hill.
Deborah Hill, yeah.
But he still was part of the music.
Yes, he did the soundtrack along with Alan Howarth. And I have to say, this is actually one of my favorite John Carpenter soundtracks because it's super moody, super atmospheric. There's a lot of deep droning synthesizers in it. I just think it's one of his best, actually. You wouldn't expect that, but I really love this soundtrack a lot.
Josh likes weird stuff.
I like a lot of synthesizer-y stuff, so,
Definitely a kid of the 80s.
Yeah, for sure.
Special effects makeup. I thought this was important to mention because when rewatching this movie yet again last night, not that we really needed to, but it was an excuse to watch it. Yeah. The death scenes in this are so original and weird and well done.
Yeah.
The practical makeup is amazing. So that man is Thomas Berman. Don't know much about him. He did do special effects makeup for My Bloody Valentine, though. He does have a huge list.
Yeah.
But that one in particular kind of stood out to me because that's another movie not a lot of people like, but I
cult
like
classic,
it. Yeah. So, yeah. And so this movie, like I said, I've grown to love it. And all of its weird things that don't make sense.
Right, and it is super weird.
It is really weird. What a strange story.
Yeah, exactly. What drugs was Tommy Lee Wallace on, and where can I get some? Because that's one of the things I love the most about this movie, actually, is it's just so absurd. The whole thing is just so bizarre. How did they come up with it? How did they get it funded? How did they get somebody to say, oh, yeah, let's do that. Let's greenlight that.
Yeah, that sounds amazing.
That sounds incredible. And it is, but...
but it's also pretty fucking weird.
Yeah, exactly.
It's strange. But because I've had to watch this so many times with Josh, we've had to watch it every year for Halloween. So, and what, we've been together for how many years now? 14
yeah,
or something
14
like
or
that.
15 years, yeah.
So that's a lot of times. And then in addition, just for the fun of it
Right.
times. So I've seen it probably about 20 times.
Probably.
Now. That's a decent amount. So as you watch it, you find the dumb stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
So, and on the Blu-ray, there is some behind-the-scenes stuff. One of them is pretty corny. In particular, it's going back to the original filming locations.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just weak boner central.
Yeah.
It's just, it's rough. It's rough. So, but we're going to go through the movie because if you haven't seen it,
Right.
we're about to spoil it for
Spoiler
you.
alert. Go watch Halloween 3 if you've never seen it right now.
Yeah. Then come on back and you could go,
Yep,
we know.
exactly.
So this movie starts out with the opening scene of a man running under an overpass.
Right.
Once you know, it just starts out in Northern California. That's what not a specific town, which I don't understand why.
It's an unincorporated area.
Apparently. Just Northern California. I'm like, I'm from Northern California, and I don't ever been like, you know what? It's up in Northern California. Never referenced.
And he obviously was not far from Santa Mira because he was on foot.
That's what I'm saying.
So you have to, why didn't they
just
say outside Santa Mira, California?
Yeah, why didn't they say it?
They could have established the location from the get-go.
They could have had a billboard.
They could have, yeah, exactly. And they do later on, but
yeah. It was a missed opportunity.
Yeah.
So yeah, just
Northern California.
Yeah, you know what I wonder if like later in editing they're like, we should have put something in there. Fuck it, just put Northern California.
Exactly.
People will be like, "Ooh, that's fun," It's where they have earthquakes. Whee!
Right.
So anyway, so the man's running, and
and he's carrying a mask, a Halloween mask in his hand. He's got a death grip on. He finds this gas station that's kind of out in the middle of nowhere and collapses.
Another gas station.
That's right, exactly.
This one
But
actually
of course,
turned out
now I
okay.
should mention before he gets to the gas station, though, he's being chased by some men that don't talk.
They're in suits.
They're in suits. He's being chased by killer businessmen.
Trying to sell vacuums.
Exactly. One of them gets crushed by the slowest moving car ever.
Yes, and not even a way you could be crushed.
Exactly.
He was just like, meh.
Yeah. He's
I
like,
said-
oh, I guess I'm dead now.
Yeah. And I was like, how would that kill him? You're like, oh, his gears got all messed up. And I'm like,
his gears got squished.
yeah. Anyway.
Well, he has an android, so
He's an
again,
android, yeah.
spoiler alert, the
Yeah.
killer businessmen are in fact androids, we find out later.
Yeah. So, but once again, 20 times seeing it
Exactly.
now.
So he gets to the gas station, the proprietor of the gas station gets him to the hospital.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
And at the hospital, they're all like, oh, what the hell's happening
Yeah.
here, And it's just like, what is
and
going
he's
on?
just saying they're going to kill us, but, they don't know more,
Yeah.
nothing more specific than that.
Yeah, he says they're going to kill us, all of us.
Yep.
And nobody was like, that's a little alarming right then.
Right.
Not like, who?
Yeah.
Just like, oh, this bro's, he's nuts. And so they give him
Thorazine.
100 milligrams of Thorazine. And I can imagine that's way too much.
Yeah, I was going to say, that sounds like a lot.
Yeah. I feel like he would be out for a good 6 months with that
exactly.
one. But yeah, so he's out, whatever.
Yes.
And then you cut to the doctor
Yes.
going to his ex-wife's house.
Yes, we get to Dr. Chalice, played by the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Atkins.
Josh has a big boner for him.
Huge.
Huge boner. He has met him.
Yeah.
Insert picture here.
That's right. And there's very few people I've ever wanted to meet. Like, I'm just not big on the whole meeting actors or whatever, but I had to meet Tom Atkins because he's in so many things that I love.
And he's a pervert.
He's not a pervert.
He is too.
Don't say that. No.
He's got a molestache.
No, he's a stud. He's a quintessential 80s stud muffin.
He's a dad.
Yeah.
He's a dad in this. Anyway. Next to his ex-wife's house, who is played by
Nancy Keys, who is also in the first Halloween and The Fog. Basically, anytime John Carpenter needed an annoying woman.
Yes. She's always
Good old Nancy,
whiny
yep.
and she's not a good actress. It's almost like I'm watching a High School Musical
Yeah,
situation.
she's a
It's
little,
just
yeah,
not good.
yeah.
But anyway, so he was like, I'm trying to be Father of the Year. And he
Yeah.
gives his kids these just cheap plastic masks. And the kids are like, oh, we're assholes.
Yeah.
Mom already got us better masks.
Yeah, exactly.
And of course, they're the
that's
silver
a-
shamrock masks.
Which is also the mask that the gentleman in the beginning of the movie that was taken to the hospital has a death grip on.
Yes. There are 3 masks. There's a skull, a witch, and a pumpkin.
Yep.
And they all have this little emblem on the back of it. If we had Josh's, which we can't find right now.
Yeah, it's packed away somewhere.
Yeah, who knows where. But yeah, that's what's on it.
Yes.
So, but thankfully Josh hasn't died from it.
That's
so
true,
it's
not
good.
yet.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then the doctor gets called back to the hospital because of bro.
Yep.
And what happens is that he gets back there And he goes and has milk and cookies
Yeah.
with the nurse.
Yeah.
He gets a little grabby.
Yeah, he's a little
many
grabby
people.
with all the women in this
Yes,
movie. Let's
it's
be
a
honest.
lot. It's a lot. See, pervert.
No, I don't think so.
Pervert. So anyway, so.
You could do that back then. It was the 80s. It was fine.
Yeah, it was fine, So he goes and takes a nap.
Yep.
And while that's happening,
Here
businessman.
come the killer businessman.
Yeah,
Well, one of them comes in and he tears the guy's skull apart while he's laying there in the hospital bed.
It is creepy. He pushes into his eye sockets with his thumbs and then
then
pulls his nose. And
Pretty gnarly.
I'm like, I should know this, but I'm wondering if it burst into like his frontal lobe and that's what caused the death. Because I would just be like, well, that he could just be deformed from that.
Right.
But no, he died from it somehow or another. Then he has the audacity to wipe his gloves off on the curtain that's hanging there. And I'm like, who does that?
Especially if you're an android. Like, you wouldn't think an android would care.
Exactly.
Especially given the fact that after he kills him, the android goes back to his car and sets himself on fire, blows up the car. So what difference does it make whether his gloves were bloody or not?
Well, exactly. So yeah, he douses
man.
himself with gasoline and sets it on fire and the whole car blows up.
Yep.
And so then you get on to the next part where they're like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah.
And that's when we meet Teddy.
Teddy.
This name. I have a thing. Why in books and movies do people come up with the most outlandish names for characters? Teddy?
What's wrong with Teddy?
It doesn't even make sense. If you knew somebody who was a Theodore or a Tedro, then you could go with Teddy.
Right.
She's a woman.
She could be a Theodora.
Stupid. Anyway, it's a little weird. It's a weird name, but
Right.
old teddy bear.
Yeah.
She's going through some parts and being like, this is weird,
Yeah, but
and
we should talk before that. I mean, we should talk about your favorite scene in the whole movie.
I refer to this man as Flappy Frank. Flappy Frank is a extra in this. He is he's the fireman chief, whatever, something like that, I guess. But he is having a conversation with a police officer who's getting, I don't know why he's getting a statement from him.
I still think it's just about the car being blown up and on fire. They're talking about that, probably.
I guess.
That'd be my guess.
I don't know. He's got on his fireman hat still, which doesn't make sense because he doesn't need to have it on inside.
No.
But they have the little emblem on the top, and that shit just
constantly flopping
flapping
about while he's moving his head.
I'm like, they had Scotch tape back then. They could have just put a piece on there.
Glue, something.
Oh, my
something
God.
to keep it from flopping. I've never seen a fireman's hat do that.
No, ever. Was it like changeable emblems?
Yeah, whether in real life or in a movie, I've never seen a floppy fireman's emblem on
No. And Josh didn't notice this until I sat there and picked it apart when we watched it, probably like the second time, I think. And I was like, why is his shit flopping about? That doesn't make any sense. And I want you to know, other people have noticed this and have wrote whole articles about it. So I'm not the only one. But it's, Flappy Frank. That's what he is referred to now. The other thing that I noticed, though, is Tom Atkins. He always has his shirt unbuttoned just a little too far for a doctor.
He's a stud muffin.
It's like down to here. He's got no chest hair.
That's true.
And he's a red shirt.
But the ladies, they love him. So he likes to give them a little more of what they want.
I have never seen a dude and been like, you'd be hotter with one button less.
Well, it was the 80s, though.
I guess. Why didn't he have like a sweet gold chain?
He should have. It was a different time.
Man who was running at the beginning of this, who was murdered by the businessman, his daughter shows up.
Yes.
And she's, of course, just so distraught and beside herself and just doesn't understand.
Yeah, why did this happen to her father? He was just a humble shopkeeper.
He was. And he was just on his way to go and get some masks from the factory.
That's right.
So she doesn't understand what happens. She's puzzled.
Meanwhile, Tom Atkins is also puzzled.
Yes.
Just because that doesn't happen at the hospital. People don't just come in and rip somebody's skull apart and then go set themselves on fire. That's pretty weird.
Yeah, because for some reason, hospitals and horror movies, nobody's ever around.
That's true. Where was the security, I ask you?
Look at Halloween 2.
That's true. Also,
it's dark. There's one nurse for the entire hospital. I'm like, what?
I've never been to a hospital that didn't have at least one rent-a-cop,
Yes. Shit just happening constantly. Doesn't matter what time of night it is. There's shit going on. Right. So I'm like, this is a boring town. Somewhere in Northern California as well. Yes. Somewhere. We don't know where they are.
We do not.
So Tom's just like, you know what? I'm an alcoholic. I got to go get a drink.
Yep.
So he goes to the bar.
Yep.
And while sitting at the bar, there's a cartoon on and he's just pissy.
Yeah.
So the guy, he was like, can you change the channel? And then it's a preview of the movie that's going to be on for Halloween night.
Which is Halloween.
Which we think is funny, of course. But then afterwards, it's Silver Shamrock saying, don't, forget to watch for the big giveaway at the end of the movie.
And we get the wonderful Silver Shamrock jingle as well.
Which will get caught in your head forever.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't stop.
Absolutely.
Since day one I've seen this movie, it circles. Yeah, it's really annoying. Yeah. So he's sitting there and he's just so frustrated. And he goes, come on. And I'm like...
Yeah, I get really upset about that, like unnecessarily so.
Yeah.
Like I get he's upset, he's troubled by what's happened, but...
It was a weird thing to put in.
Yeah.
So, daughter comes in,
Right, yes.
and her name is actually...
Ellie.
Ellie, that's right.
Goodbridge.
Ellie comes into the bar, and she was like, oh, I was told you'd be here, because,
Because you're a booze hound.
Yeah. So, they're both puzzled together.
Yes.
And then they're like, let's go on a road trip.
Yeah. So, off they go to Santa Mira, California.
Which, I'll look it up. I'll tell you where it actually is, because I don't remember.
Santa Mira doesn't really exist.
No, it doesn't exist. It's just a coastal town somewhere in Northern California.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they're off and they go and they see the factory, and she's like, oh, but we got to have a plan. And I'm like, I don't know what plan you could possibly have.
Yeah, right.
Because she doesn't, they're not suspecting that something foul happened within the factory.
Right.
They just want to know.
Did he show up to pick up the masks? Did they know where he went? Those
exactly. In hopes that, somebody will know something. And with a vast amount of security cameras in Santa Mira, you would think they would find that out.
Right.
So they decided, okay, let's go back to the gas station, which is owned by the same man who owns the motel right next door to it. Throughout the entire town, you can hear this curfew announcement. And I'm like, that's weird.
Oh, yeah. There's obviously something up with this town from the get-go, because they get there, and as we mentioned, all the security cameras are everywhere on, like, every light post and stuff. Everybody's staring at them when they drive through, So they definitely know something's up. And then there's this curfew announcement that comes on.
And for some reason, everybody that lives there is Irish.
Yes.
And there's like a Ireland map that's on the wall, and it just everything's Irish themed, which is not totally weird. We have German themed towns, but not ones with weird curfews.
Exactly.
So, and a big, huge looming factory behind, that makes masks, which is just strange. As they're getting checked into this motel, and the doctor, Tom Atkins, he goes and checks out the register, and he sees that yes, in fact, that her father did stay at the motel.
Right.
So they got that info. They're like, okay, cool. But they meet the other people that are staying at the motel, who all happen to come in at the same time.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird.
Yeah.
First is the annoying family of Buddy and Buddy Jr., whatever his wife's name was. And they're on a big Winnebago, and it's just obnoxious, loud, used car salesman kind of situation. Oh, gosh, I can't stand them. And then the next lady, who's a shop owner in San Francisco at Union Square. So Mr. Humparound, he's getting the shakes, because he needs his alcohol.
Gotta have a drink. He's exerted himself here with all this sex with a younger woman.
Now
he
makes
needs
sense.
a drink.
His name is Dr. Chalice, which is a cup.
Right. Oh, yeah.
That carries alcohol.
Yeah. Good
There you go. Still a dumb name, but regardless. So he goes out. I don't even know where he buys alcohol because everything's
curfew,
closed.
right?
Yeah, so that's interesting. But he runs into the town drunk.
Right.
And I know this was a different time, but that man said something along the lines of, that looks really good. I don't have any diseases or anything. Can I have a sip? And I'm like, this is a doctor.
Yeah.
He should know better.
Yeah, very. Yeah.
That guy might have some gonorrhea on his lip or something.
God only knows.
Yeah. But he still shares it with him. And both of us were like, why didn't he just give him the bottle?
Right. Yeah, just here you go, buddy.
But the doctor's a lush, and he needs his fix too.
That's
so,
right.
So the town drunk is stumbling around after that.
Yeah, he's talking a bunch of shit about Silver Shamrock and the factory and all that stuff. So
yeah, and the doctor's like, oh, well, what happened? Like as if this man's word is going to mean something. And he's just belligerent and just angry.
Not the best source of information, probably.
The only thing that he said that was important, though, is that he tried to get a job at the factory, but he was local, and they only hired people, or they brought in people
from outside.
From Ireland, apparently.
From Ireland,
They were all just doing an Irish jig on the way in, know, and top of the morning to you. Let's go make some masks. So, but yeah, so the doctor wanders off. The drunk goes stumbling around. And of course, the cameras have been watching him, and he even said this to the doctor,
Yeah.
watch out,
Yeah.
But then he doesn't take his own advice.
Exactly.
And he had his own bottle, by the way.
Yeah.
So we're like, why did you need to go and gross up the other bottle?
That's right.
That's just nasty. Anyway, so he goes and does that thing, and then the businessmen come
the
after.
businessmen kill the town drunk. Yeah. Surprisingly didn't happen a long time ago.
Yeah.
But I think it's because he's talking about how he's going to burn the factory down this year and
that's
stuff
right.
like that. So.
Yeah. But how did they kill him? I don't remember.
They rip his head off.
Oh, that's right. He gets beheaded.
Yeah.
And in the easiest way
Oh,
possible.
yeah. Those strong androids. They can just rip your head off like it's nothing.
Like it's nothing. So the doctor gets back to the motel, and they've been humping some more.
Yeah.
And they hear something.
Yeah.
So he gets up and he looks out the window, and there's a weird old-ass ambulance backed up, and a bunch of businessmen with lab coats
now
on.
they got lab coats on.
Yeah, so now it's more serious.
Yeah.
And what happened was poor Margie.
Yep.
She was, she's so annoying and nosy, and she found the other half of the thing that was on the mask.
Yeah, little emblem.
Yeah, and she pulls out a bobby pin and is just digging around.
Oh, yeah, well, she sees like a microchip in there, and I'm sure she's like, well, why the hell is this microchip in the back of a Halloween mask?
Even so, what is a bobby pin going to tell you if you did pull out
well,
of that?
that's true, yeah. I think she was just trying to pry it out, maybe.
Yeah, so, but misfire.
Misfire. What's ever going on with these masks? She's dicking around with it, sets it off, lasers blasts her in the mouth. Her face is just wrecked, and then bugs start coming out.
The doctor tries to. He's like, I'm a doctor. I'm going to come in here. And they're like, nah,
Yeah, they restrain him.
Yeah. They're like, no.
And that's when Connell Cochran shows up, who is, of course, the main villain of this whole situation.
Yes. And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. We're going to take her to the hospital in the factory.
And the factory has a medical facility. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Nothing fishy at all about that.
No, it's totally normal. Totally normal. So, of course, it's like, what the fuck happened?
The suspicion just keeps piling on here.
Yes. So the following day, Teddy, she's looking through Petri dishes. I don't know why this shit was in Petri dishes, because Petri dishes are not meant for this.
Right.
But she's just got all these parts because they were trying to figure out what the hell happened with this car that blew up still.
Right.
And she's just finding plastic and
there's
metal.
there's no bone fragments, no pieces of the guy at all.
Yeah.
Because obviously they don't know that these are androids yet.
Exactly. And I think it wouldn't take me that long to figure out that something was weird.
Yeah.
That's just me, though. But okay, so the next day, so Ellie and the doctor, they're done boinking.
Yeah.
She's walking like she just got off a horse.
That's right.
And they decide to go to the factory.
Yes.
So they go in where, basically like the office or whatever, and are asking, do you remember this order? Do you remember this person? And yes, we helped him with that. And then he left.
He left, right.
And he went north. That's all they said.
Just north.
Northern California, once again. Going north in Northern California.
Yeah.
So
a lot of north happening in
yeah,
this movie.
it's very north. So then the annoying family comes in with Buddy and Buddy Jr. and his annoying wife. And it's because they're supposedly the best salespeople.
They sold more masks than anyone else in the country.
And if I walked into a store and Buddy worked there, I'd turn around.
Leave.
Same thing goes with the ice cream shop
Yeah.
here. We don't go to that one because he talks too much.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's going to get it. The family's going to get a tour, and Doctor and Ellie are just standing there. I don't know why they're hemming and hawing about leaving.
Yeah, I think they're just trying to wait and see. I think they wanted to see Connell Cochran again to see if they could, because they're suspicious, obviously, to see if they can figure anything else out.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
So Cochran does come out, and he offers Buddy and his family a guided tour of the factory. Buddy says, hey, they're going by fake Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
Yes.
They're going by clever fake names of Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Can they come with us on the tour? So then we get to see what's going on inside the factory.
Which I have to say, I don't know why, but this is one of my favorite parts. I think it's because I like special effects makeup, and so you're actually, it's not the full detail,
right?
But you're watching how they make these masks.
Pouring the latex and stuff is pretty cool, I think,
it
too.
is.
Yeah, I like that part as well.
Yeah, so the little boy who's obnoxious, who's kind of like, what's her bucket in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, yeah,
What's her name?
Is that Veruca Salt?
Yeah, Veruca Salt. He's kind of like that, just annoying, and I want this and I want that, and he's spoiled. And he's like, I want a mask, man. And Mr. Cochran's like, oh, no, we only want the finest things for you, so you're getting a completed one that's in the plastic.
Been through final processing.
Yes. And so then there's the question of what final processing is.
Yeah.
And of course, Mr. Cochran's not going to say shit.
So they're going through this factory tour. They go out. There's a part that's outside, and that's when Ellie sees her father's car in one of the, hanging out in one of the buildings, just with a tarp partially over it or something.
Yeah.
And of course, she has a spaz. Well, if she had played it cool, they probably would have been fine. But
no,
she freaks out a little bit, and they leave at that point. And So then they're trying to, get away at that point. They're trying to pack up to leave and everything. But, of course, the androids show up.
Of course. Once again, trying to sell vacuums.
That's right. And, of course, Ellie gets captured immediately. Dr. Chalice makes a run for it.
Yeah, through the bathroom window.
Through the bathroom window, and eventually he also gets taken as well.
Yes.
This is, of course, I think Cochran is one of the best villains ever because he just hits all the marks of what you want from a movie villain. Like, he's just so flamboyant, and, his monologues are fantastic. And, of course, he has to explain his evil plan in great detail. I just love him. I love Dan O'Hurley. I think he's a great actor. He should have been in more things.
What's weird about him, though, is that I had said yesterday, I'm like, why does he have an English accent? And you're like, well, he's Irish. Well, I can tell that by his last name. But he doesn't have an Irish accent like everybody else, which is weird to me.
It comes out more at certain times.
Yeah.
Finally, he's explaining his evil plan. And, basically they've taken this chunk of Stonehenge and brought it back to America. They've stolen a piece of Stonehenge and brought it back to America.
And it's not just like a handheld bag size. It's like one of the whole pillars.
Yeah, it's a full-on,
And he was like, man, we had a hell of a time getting it here.
Exactly.
Well, no shit. Why would you be able to get Stonehenge over?
Yes. So at that point, they explain, obviously there was always, I don't know how true it is about, like, pagan sacrifices happening at Stonehenge. I don't know the history or details of that for sure, but obviously that's what they're kind of going for, is it's part of this sacrificial thing. And And they're saying how there's basically a dark magic in it, or a dark force that kind of possesses this piece of Stonehenge. And even a small piece of it can be deadly. So they're taking pieces off of this chunk of Stonehenge and putting it in those microchips that are attached to the mask. And that's how they're going to kill everybody.
Yes. So, and that sacrificial thing, they said it happens once every 300 years. Yeah. And he kind of just goes into like a bitter rant about how, Americans just are like, oh, it's candy and costumes, and they don't understand the real thing. Yeah. And he brings up Samhain and the whole...
And his accent comes out a lot more there at that point.
And then he's like, oh, you're always after me, Lucky Charms,
exactly.
And,
exactly. Yeah. So, of course, and of course, at this point also, during this whole sequence, they do the demonstration. The flashing pumpkin plays on the TV where Buddy and his family are in. The kid, has the mask on. It starts to melt. His face is probably melting underneath, I assume, and then he falls dead. Bugs, snakes, all this stuff are coming out of his face.
The mom passes
out. Buddy gets bitten by snakes.
Yeah. There was a rattlesnake.
Yeah.
And it just keeps attacking his leg.
Yep.
And I don't think you can just instantly die from a rattlesnake bite, but that's,
That's,
whatever. It's a movie.
Exactly.
So, and the doctor had to watch this whole thing while tied to an office chair.
Right.
It's one of the businessmen's office chair, They were in their cube earlier.
That's right.
Yeah, working on some numbers. Once again, great special effects. The fact that they were so detailed in how that mask melted in steps. It wasn't just like, oh, instantly, bloop, it looked like this could have really happened. Yeah. So at that point, the doctor is rolled into a shipping container, essentially, and had a mask put over his head.
And they've got the TV in there, so it'll kill him when the
thing happens.
When the Magic Pumpkin gets broadcast. Yeah.
Yes, and that, by the way, the Magic Pumpkin we're referring to is that annoying commercial. It's just now used for this reason.
Yeah.
So he decides to escape, and this man should have been, I don't know, he should have played baseball or something where targets are needed. Because he magically takes this mask off and
perfectly flings it onto the camera so it blocks their view of what he's doing.
No, that's just not how those work. We own one of those masks. The head hole is not that big to where it could just bloop right onto it. But it did. I wonder how he takes that.
Seriously.
So then he escapes through air ducts. Now, something that Josh and I always comment on with movies, especially in the 80s, is these things where it was like they always did something in an 80s movie. And air ducts.
Oh, yeah.
Escaping in air ducts was definitely a big one.
For sure.
Of course, Breakfast Club comes to mind immediately.
Yeah. Die Hard.
Die Hard. Yeah. But you said you thought it started with Alien.
Yeah, that was the first one I remember. Alien came out in 1979, and obviously the creature is using the air shafts in the ship to get around. So that's the first movie I remember seeing that in, where people are crawling around in air shafts.
Yeah. And I don't really feel like that metal is that strong. I worked at an HVAC company. I know what those things are made of and how thin they are. They're sheet metal. I don't really feel like they can hold human weight.
Right.
Another one that did it was Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. I think they were in that stuff too. But anyway, so he's crawling through and he finds Ellie. She's strapped to a table and has blue cowboy boots on.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, that's
80s.
just exactly 80s. Yeah. That's just a fashion crime right there. He should have just left her. We're like, nah, son, that looks terrible. So, but yeah, they're trying to escape.
Right.
And they're up on the catwalk above Stonehenge.
Right.
And then they happen to have grabbed a box of all of those button things
chips,
that
yeah.
go on there. And they throw them down.
Yeah. Well, we shouldn't point out that he is also, he snuck down, Dr. Chow sneaks down into the control room, starts pressing buttons, because apparently he magically memorized the sequence of buttons needed to activate this thing that's going to kill people.
Yes.
You know?
Well, and I had noted earlier that when they were first doing the test, that they had pushed 666 on it. The devil.
There you go.
The devil made him do it.
And he did.
So yeah, they throw these things and it kills. There's hundreds of these things that are dropped.
Yeah.
Only 5 are on the floor in the next scene, but it just kills the businessmen.
Yeah, it kills all the businessmen.
And then Mr. Cochran.
I was going to say, Stonehenge lights up.
Yes.
And then Cochran's like, yeah, all right, you got me.
Yeah.
Nice job. He's like, gives him the golf clap. Nice job.
Yeah, it's like...
That's why he's such a great villain.
Such
just
a
things
weirdo.
like that. Just
such a weird
just
thing.
such a unique cat, man.
I think if I was about ready to be blown up, I would have shit myself. I think that's really what happened. But I also, once again... That was an amazing effect that they did. I mean, it didn't age well.
Right.
But I was like, oh, that's how Dr. Manhattan was born.
That's right.
Because that's what it reminded me of, is when he gets all glowy and shit. So they leave, and they're driving really fast out of town.
Yeah. And Ellie attacks him.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she has not said a word this entire time since he rescued her, so...
Yeah.
They crash the car. We soon find out she has been replaced with an android.
Yes. And her body parts just keep attacking.
Yeah, there's some tenacious parts.
Arms and they just keep coming after
She's
her.
the upgraded model, apparently, because the other ones just kind of croak.
Yeah. So then the doctor starts running.
Yep.
Ends up back at the gas station.
Yeah, right where Mr. Grimbridge was at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah. And he's trying to call the TV stations so he can get this
so they
commercial
don't run the
off air.
broadcast with the magic pumpkin that's going to kill everybody.
I should back up and say that he did try calling his annoying wife at one point when they were still in the factory.
Oh, yeah.
And she didn't want to listen.
Just accused him of being drunk.
Yeah. Which,
I mean, I understand, kind of.
If I got that phone call, I'd be like, what is wrong with you?
Exactly.
You know, what did you take?
Yeah, exactly.
So, but that's the famous scene at the end where he's just trying to get them to stop this commercial, and it doesn't stop.
Yeah, it leaves it ambiguous as to whether he's able to get the third channel to stop broadcasting.
So all of his kids had melted, I'm sure.
They may have.
Yeah. Like Josh said at the beginning, this is a totally different story from other Halloweens. No Michael Myers, but it's actually stands on its own.
Yes.
And it, like you said, it could have been far more successful if they had just done it on its own and not because the fact that they did Halloween ... Season of the Witch. It's like just take out the front part.
Exactly.
You didn't need all of that.
Just call it Season of the Witch.
Yeah. Now I always like to give Josh a hard time with this movie, and say that Mr. Cochran and the businessmen are aliens, but it really comes down to the fact that people don't really know how Stonehenge got where it is, and there's the theory of aliens,
right,
and all that. But it drives him nuts that I say it every time. He's like, "It's not aliens." I'm like, it's fucking aliens, man. Look, they got glowing stones.
Well, it might have been alien. Their dark magic or whatever could have been alien technology. Who knows?
It could have been. I mean, I don't know that witches can make stones glow.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe there's a spell for glowing stones.
Could be.
It's like the Rolling Stones, but the glowing stones. Yeah. But, like I said, a lot of people don't really care for this movie. They will shit talk it and it's like there's no point to that.
Right.
I think a lot of it is just because it's popular to talk shit about it.
Yeah.
But in recent years, we have noticed more merchandise, more things pertaining to Halloween 3 specifically.
Yeah.
We've seen nods in other movies towards it. And so who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
I think if you were to watch it and ignore the Halloween portion of it, the only thing that's recognizable, aside from the fact that Halloween 1 is on the commercials, and the fact that towards the end of the movie, John Carpenter's slow theme for Michael Myers is in there, which is probably the best part of that music, by the way. I think that's the only thing that's like really ties it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, you wouldn't know.
Yeah, it stands on its own for sure.
So have you seen this movie? Do you like this movie? Do you hate it like everybody else? Have you never watched it, but you just don't want to watch it because everybody else tells you not to watch it?
And if you haven't, you should.
Yes.
Open your mind.
Yes. Broaden your horizons. Because here we are at the spooky season.
Yeah.
And this is the time to watch dumb horror movies.
Yep.
Out of any time of the year, this is the best time.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So give it a shot. Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Don't send us hate mail. Because we don't care.
That's right.
This is definitely a Han favorite. It is not Josh's mom's favorite.
No.
She hates this movie. I almost made her watch it the other day, but I was like, nah, But yeah, let us know what you think.
Indeed.
And we're going to continue, obviously, with the spooky season theme because that's how we roll. And it is our favorite time of the year.
Yes.
This is around the time that we met.
Yeah.
And so it's an important part of our little world.
Absolutely.
So anyway, we're going to see you next week, though. Bye.